Okay, we're live. Hello everyone. Let me just check that it's all working on the computer. I've got a bit of a different setup. So filming on my iPhone with a lav mic. Hopefully good lighting. So hopefully video and audio quality should be okay. Just let me know in the comments if you can hear me and see me okay. That'd be awesome. 9 watching. Anyone want to comment? Please. Yay. Awesome. Okay. Welcome to Scape School Sunday. Let's just wait for a few more people to start watching before we really get going. Let me know where you're from. It would be awesome to hear everyone from all over the world. This is one of the great things about YouTube. You can instantly get your message across all around the globe. Absolutely love it. It's amazing. Lighting is good also. Thank you, Stephen. So yeah, I've had before we get cracking into the Scape School, it's going to last about an hour, this live stream. Before we get going, give you a bit of an update. You might have seen my gallery video by now. This is the latest work of art, if you like, in the gallery. So this was actually created by my friend Ray McCune from Scape Nature. They had their grand opening to the public day yesterday, which was very successful. Loads of people there. I'm guessing there must have been at least over 100 visitors, if not more. It was just absolutely hectic, which was really great to see, obviously, on an open day. And yeah, this is where I got this from. So really love it, and I'll probably do maybe a whole video to it on its own because it's so lovely. And you've probably seen the Fluval Flex, and then there's Nimrod in that corner over there. If I get time, I'll give you a quick tour of the gallery later because I'm filming on my mobile, so hopefully it should be okay. Steve Killenback, yay! I met Steve at Scape Nature yesterday. Hi Steve, hope you're doing well, mate. Great to meet you. So that's all good stuff. Yeah, so how many watching now? 48 watching. Good stuff, guys. Give the live stream a like if you do enjoy the content, and then if you could share it, that would be amazing. So I'm sure there's like a share button, I think, whatever device you're watching on, and if you can share it to some friends, and we'll try and get as big an engagement as we can. That would be excellent. Hey Candy, thanks for joining. Hey Fish Cove Aquatics, I guess that's Duncan watching. Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you for watching. Okay guys, so let's go into the topics then, shall we? Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for watching. Seems to have been the 2019 still growing really well for the channel, and got loads more exciting content for you soon. I've got a really I'm not really going to announce it, but you'll know when I do it. But something really, really exciting that should grow the channel pretty big time. Exciting news coming up is that in March I will be visiting the US, so hopefully going to see the Aquarium Design Group guys, so Jeff and Mike Senske. Going to go to Global in Orlando, which is a trade show, and also big news is Aquascaping in Dallas, so going to be doing a scape off with some guy called Joey Mullen, King of DIY. I don't know if you've heard of him. LOL. So that'll be good fun, and get aquascaping to an even bigger audience than it already is. So that's super exciting news. And yeah, it's going to be a crazy year, and I'm really looking forward to sharing a lot of it with you guys. So thanks for watching. Really appreciate it. Really appreciate the likes, the comments, and I read all of your comments. So if I don't reply to you personally, just do take note that I do read them. So thank you so much. So what were the topics? Let me just double check what the topics we were going to cover. I think the first one was emerged versus submerged plants. Let me just double check because I wrote it about, I came up with the idea about 4 o'clock this morning. So as I do lots of my thinking at this time. Yes, so here we are. Submerged versus emerged plants, number one. So we'll do about 10-15 minutes on that, then we'll do about 15-10 minutes on the floating plants, and then we'll do rimless tanks versus tanks with a hood. So this is an example of rimless, an example of a tank with a hood. And yeah, we'll talk about the advantages and disadvantages, and then we'll end up with a Q&A, and that will take us up to about an hour's time. So I hope you enjoy the live stream. I'm enjoying it myself so far. Okay guys, so 153 of you watching, that is amazing. Good to have a great audience. Really hope you enjoy the content. Let's dive straight in. So, emerged versus submerged plants. Now, some of you may not know what this actually means to start with. So, aquatic plants, in nature, they will 90-95% of the time grow out of water, even though they're aquatic plants, okay? So, in the Amazon, in whatever river basin, all around the world, most of the time aquatic plants are actually growing emerged, which means out of water. And they only grow submerged, which means underwater, when whatever river they're in or basin gets flooded. And the plant has to adapt to submerged growth or underwater growth. So emerged, that's E-M-E-R-G-E-D, out of water, submerged, S-U-B-M-E-R-G-E-D, underwater. So from now on we'll refer to above water and below water as emerged and submerged. Other names you might know are hydroponically grown. So in the nurseries, they'll grow most aquatic plants hydroponically, which means out of water, emerged. So the plant roots themselves will be in nutrient-rich water, circulating, and the rest of the plant is growing out of the water into the air, emerged growth. There are a few species of plants, and it's only a few, that are 100% aquatic, which means they only live underwater. They will not grow out of water. Examples that you've probably heard of are Vallis or Val, all of the species of Vallisneria, and Egeria densa, or some people call it pondweed. It's like an oxygenating plant, and there are a few other fully aquatic plants as well. Let me just try and think of another couple. Oh, Blixia japonica is a common plant. Blixia albertii, which I have in Nimrod's tank, and I will be doing an update on Nimrod in the near future. So these are all plants that have to absolutely live underwater. They will not adapt to out of water growth. So it's a bit of kind of background for you. Now, I get a lot of questions or a lot of commentary about, you know, what their plants will melt when they buy their plants from the store. And a lot of the time, when you go to buy a plant from a pet store or an aquascaping specialist store, or whatever fish retail store you're buying your aquarium plants from, the vast majority of them will be received in that store in their emerged form, so they're out of water form. And the reason for this is the nurseries, the greenhouses, the guys that are producing these aquatic plants grow them emerged hydroponically because it's much more efficient. They get better yields for the amount of energy they're putting in. They grow quicker, because if you imagine a emerged plant is growing out of water, so it has unlimited access to carbon dioxide in the air, which is a hugely important nutrient for a plant. It has more light because it's not underwater. There's no algae because it's growing out of water, and they just grow much quicker, much more robust. They're physically more robust because the plant can support itself in the air. Whereas if you imagine a plant that's underwater, it hasn't got to support itself so much because the water is taking its weight. So if it's growing out of water, it's super kind of strong. And actually, this is where a lot of the confusion happens. Emerged plants, plants that are growing out of water, are, in my opinion and in my experience, a lot better for the hobbyist. Now, it might sound a little bit counterintuitive. Let me explain. So, when you buy your emerged plant from your store, the plant is actually, if it's fresh from the nursery, that's a disclaimer there, it has to be fresh from the nursery, and it's in its emerged form, is actually really strong. It's got a lot of nutrient store, and it's going to hopefully readily adapt to your aquarium better than buying a submerged plant. Now let me explain that in more detail. So let's say let's think of an example. So let's think of a classic emerged plant. So in here, I don't know if you can see, guys, it's got this Rotala rotundifolia here. This has been completely adapted to its submerged form now. When I bought it, I actually bought it in a blister pack, so it wasn't even, it's never actually been in full water. It gets potted at the Tropica nursery, grown out of water, gets put in a blister pack, and it's never actually completely submersed. So when you buy it from the shop, which was what I did, it's literally on a hanger in a plastic kind of recyclable, environmentally friendly plastic kind of container, and pick it off, and that plant is in its emerged form, very hardy. It will survive in that state for a number of weeks, and that plant is super strong, super adaptable. Put that in my tank, which I've done here, right now. And then a few weeks later, I'm thinking this is probably about 60 days old now, this setup. And it's adapted absolutely fine from its emerged form to its submerged form. No die-off, no algae. It's just adapted really well. Now, if I decided I wanted to sell this plant now, so this plant now, this Rotala rotundifolia, has adapted to its submerged form. It's been in this tank for 60 days. It's fully adapted. I don't know if any of you guys know about Rotala rotundifolia, but the leaf shape is actually quite dramatically different. In fact, if you guys can see this plant here, this is a Rotala. I think it's Rotala hra, which is very similar to rotundifolia, but it goes more red. You might be able to see, I don't know if you can see, guys, in the camera there, but these leaves are much more round, and that's why it's called rotundifolia. So that's emergent form, and this is submerged form. Now, if I decided I wanted to sell this plant, this Rotala rotundifolia, in its submerged form, I could prune it, I could trim it right back, I could send those cuttings off to the customer, and there's a couple of problems. That's fully adapted to its submerged form, so it's really floppy, it's not very robust, it's really fragile, so it's not going to transport very well. That's a problem. It's also it's going to potentially, if it dries out any amount in the packaging, that's going to damage the tissues of the plant. And actually, this is adapted to this water chemistry in my aquarium. Let's say this has a pH of 7.5, this aquarium, and I wanted to send it to a guy. He's got an aquarium pH of 6.5. It's really soft water. Let's say this water is really hard. I have a pH of 7.5. I send in this Rotala rotundifolia in its submerged form, gets to the customer, puts it in his aquarium, which has got a difference of pH. You know, his is 6.5, this is 7.5. He's got soft water, I've got hard water. I can almost guarantee you that this plant isn't going to adapt very well. It probably melts, it's probably suffered in transit. And so in my experience and in my view, absolutely better to buy your plants when they're in their emerged form for this reason, this adaptability reason, the issues with transit. And it's kind of a bit of a misconception that it's always better to buy plants when they're in their submerged form. So I just wanted to kind of address this. There are exceptions. I know a lot of you guys watching are in the States, and you have your access to high quality emerged plants is quite limited. So sometimes you can be better off buying the submerged form. So I can't talk with any kind of experience or credibility from that perspective, but from a European perspective, if you can buy your plants fresh from the nursery, have a chat with your retailer, your store, find out when they're getting their plants from the nursery, when they're in their emerged form, ideally when they're super fresh, and buy them straight away before they start adapting to their submerged form in the store. Now, some really specialist stores will actually keep their plants in their emerged form. They'll keep them hydroponically in little grow tents or hydroponic systems. Classic example is aquarium gardens. These guys will keep their plants deliberately in their emerged form, and you don't get the algae. They carry on growing. If you go to a kind of less specialist store that's keeping their plants submerged, that plant is going to go through its adaptation phase. The growing conditions might not be great in the store where they're holding the plants, and they might be having algae on them, they might have snails on them. And so this is the reason, another reason I like to buy emerged plants. I hope that kind of explains a few things to you. You might have learnt a few things there. You might disagree with me, which is fine. But I just wanted to put my point across and hopefully dispel a few myths and explain a little bit about the differences between emerged and submerged plants. So I'm just going to check out the comments, guys, see if there's any. So someone's just asked, are tropical tissue culture plants emerged? They're a bit of a unique. The tropical tissue culture plants are grown in, most of them are grown in actually a liquid medium, which makes them submerged. But because they're babies and they're in such a nutrient-rich liquid, they transport fine because of the way they're contained, and actually they'll adapt really well to virtually any aquarium environment because of this really super nutrient-rich jelly. And they're so young, they just want to grow and they want to do really well. So it's actually my favourite way of buying the plant is in a tissue culture form, especially the Tropica ones who grow in the liquid medium jelly. These are super great. Now, if you are in America, in North America, and you're watching right now, you can buy Tropica plants. I make no secret that I work closely with Tropica. They sponsor the channel. And, the reason they do that is because I love their plants and I'm happy to promote them. So with that in mind, if you are in North America and you want to buy plants from Tropica, just have a chat with your retailer and say, did you know you can buy plants from Tropica North America? They have a growing facility now in Vancouver, and they can ship anywhere in North America. So if you really want to get Tropica plants in North America, you should be able to. Okay. Someone says Tropica plants are nowhere to be found in New York or New Jersey. You should be able to get them from Brooklyn Hardscape, who's in Manhattan, I think. So just check him out. Okay, guys, let's move on to the next topic, which I believe was floating plants. Let's double check that. Yes. So I love floating plants. I've started using them in all my aquariums. So they're in my Fluval Flex, through my Aquascape, the 1200 and the 600. And the reason I love them so much is because there was lots of benefits. They grow really, really quickly. They produce lots of oxygen through the roots. They grow really quickly because they're so near the light, and because they're floating, they've got loads of access to CO2 in the air. And they also shade the aquarium. Now this is an advantage and a disadvantage. So if you're running really high levels of light and you've got easy plants, it's absolutely no problem to shade, the plants underneath, which is kind of what I'm doing at the moment. Most of the plants I grow are easy and I'm using relatively high levels of lighting. So actually it's a good thing that I'm using floating plants because it's creating a shade. I also run a lot of rimless tanks, open top tanks, and we'll talk about that in more detail in a moment. But one of the disadvantages to rimless is that the fish tend to want to jump. Now, if you have floating plants, the risk of this is reduced dramatically. So they serve water quality advantages, more oxygen, more nutrient removal. The shading of the light helps to reduce algae as well as the extra nutrient removal. And they're also what we call a good indicator plant. So because they grow so quickly, you'll soon notice any kind of paling of the floating plant will indicate there's a lack of nutrients in the water. And a floating plant will usually change colour before the other plants. So it will give you, it's like the first kind of warning that your plants need more nutrients. So if you start getting a yellowing, pale floating plant, add some more nutrients, whether it's, I just use an all-in-one solution, add more, maybe a double what you normally do, and then hopefully, your floating plants will grow really well again, nice and rich green colour, and all of the other plants in that aquarium are doing well as well. So floating plants, just try them if you haven't got them already. So my favourite at the moment is Salvinia auriculata. It used to be called Salvinia natans. This is available in the Tropica 1-2 grow, and it's very manageable. It's not a really rampant grower like Lem the Minor or duckweed, which you may have heard of, and the roots stay quite short, so it doesn't impact the aquascape too much. The leaves only grow to a maximum of 10 millimetres, 1 centimetre, which is about 1/3 of an inch. And once they kind of overtake and get too kind of dense on the surface, you can just literally scoop them out of your hands and then discard of them or spread them around your other aquariums. Do not put them in local waterways. Be very careful how you dispose of floating plants, especially because they can be invasive and start to have an impact on the local environment. So please do discard of your floating plants carefully. That's about it on floating plants, really. Just they'll grow in almost any aquarium because they're so near the light. Even try them in aquariums where you wouldn't normally have plants, just because of their positive influence on the water chemistry and the whole aquarium system. So give them a try. If you haven't got them already, just try them out. Just buy a pot, go online and ask if anyone's got any spare, and yeah, just give them a try and see what you think. Okay guys, so that's floating plants done. How are we doing for time? Nearly past. This is good. We're doing well. We're on schedule, sorry for my American friends. There's 255 of you watching. This has got to be a record for Scape School Sunday. Thank you so much. If you are enjoying the content, guys, give me a thumbs up. Appreciate you watching. Giving the thumbs up is really great for sort of triggering YouTube and letting other people know it might be a video worth watching. So if you want to promote aquascaping on a wider level, give me a thumbs up. That's really appreciated. And I will say, you know, the last 15 minutes or so, I'm going to dedicate it to Q&A. So if you do definitely want some question answering during the last 15 minutes, drop a super chat. Just drop me the minimum amount if you want to. If you want to support the channel a bit more, you know, drop as much as you like. But the only way I can guarantee answering a question for you guys is if you drop a super chat. It's the only way I can kind of, there's so many comments coming through, I just need to kind of see who definitely wants a question answering. Okay, so the final kind of topic of Scape School Sunday before we go into the Q&A is rimless tanks versus hooded tanks. So this is an interesting topic, and it can cause some, you know, antagonism. Some people are very much against rimless and some people are very much for it. And yeah, I'm just going to tell you what my own experiences and opinions are. They by no means mean that, you know, I am 100% right and whatever I say goes. Everyone's entitled to their own viewpoint, but I'll just say what I think. So hands up, I am a huge fan of rimless tanks with a few disclaimers. So the reason I love rimless tanks is because I am an aquascaper, and for me aquascaping is about creating the most visually appealing, beautiful, you know, work of art, you know, natural art form that I can. Now to do that, I would really love to have the rimless tank. I like to use glass pipes. I like to hide as much equipment as I can. I like to have suspended light, and the whole kind of illusion is hopefully creating this kind of floating, almost floating column of water, and with minimum distraction, so your eyes are just drawn to that beautiful aquascape and hopefully not being distracted by any equipment. That's fundamentally it. That is why I really like rimless tanks. They offer other advantages, so they're easier to maintain, especially if you've got decent suspended lighting. You know, you can look into the tank straight away. You know, being rimless, you can have, you know, hardscape coming out of the tank. You can have emergent plant growth. We talked about emergent plants at the beginning of the Scape School Sunday, didn't we? And you can enjoy lots of things that you couldn't necessarily enjoy with a hooded tank. So these are kind of the reasons I really love rimless. And you know, I'll always probably have a rimless aquascape in my living space in the gallery. I mean, I have 1, 2, 3, if you count this as an aquarium, it's not really, but I have 4 rimless tanks right now. I have 1 hooded tank, and exclusive news for you guys that are watching right now, I have just set up the hardware for another hooded tank, which is a high-end system, and I'll do an exclusive video on that coming soon, hopefully. And I'm going to do an aquascape that is going to be completely different to anything you've ever seen from me. So you can look forward to something quite exciting coming soon. So rimless tanks, lots of advantages. Disadvantages to rimless tanks. Jumping fish. This is the #1 reason that people are put off rimless tanks. And fish do jump. Certain species of fish are more prone to jumping than others. So if you do have a rimless tank, you really need to consider, are the fish you've got compatible with a rimless tank? Now, I've got a betta, and I've read many times that bettas love to jump. He's in a rimless tank. I am worried that he's going to jump out, but as I said earlier about the floating plants, almost the whole of the surface is covered with floating plants. So I'm hopeful Nimrod is going to be happy enough not to want to jump out. I will be absolutely devastated if he does, and it will be a lesson learned, and I will probably never keep a betta again in a rimless tank. So I hope and I pray that he never wants to jump out, because he lives in a beautiful home, and I think he likes his life in there. And so yeah, I'm hopeful that he won't jump, but it is a concern. And if you are concerned about your fish jumping, then maybe best not to go for a rimless. Other disadvantages of rimless: evaporation. I did a water change on these three actually. In fact, all the tanks I did water changing, but the water level I haven't topped it up since, and it's a week ago, and it's dropped nearly an inch. So I've lost a lot of water, and now this is a disadvantage. So as the water evaporates, it leaves behind the minerals. Only pure water, pure H2O, evaporates from a rimless tank, and all of the totally dissolved solids, all the waste, it's staying in that tank. So gradually your hardness levels are going to build. And so this is it doesn't really matter for me, because I do huge weekly water changes now. And so any this build up in hardness, etc., is going to be massively diluted and reset by these big water changes. But it's something to bear in mind. If you're not doing these large water changes and you have a rimless tank, then do bear in mind over a period, your hardness levels are going to build up. If you have hard water, you're likely going to be left behind on the glass, on the interior of the glass, some hard water deposits, which looks ugly. I like to use like a Denelay Cleanator to get rid of that quite easily. Any of you that have seen my maintenance videos know all about that probably by now. But that is a disadvantage, and that's worth considering. A lot of people won't want to be doing these large weekly water changes. They might want to be keeping fish that might want to jump. Another disadvantage to rimless tanks is that it's going to take more energy to heat the water, because of the heat loss from the surface of the aquarium. You will use more energy keeping that aquarium to the right temperature. Obviously, the warmer you keep the aquarium, the more energy you're gonna take. So these are just things to bear in mind. So let's switch to hooded tanks. So this is the Fluval Flex. Some of you may have seen the creation guide on here, how I aquascape this. It doesn't look much like an aquascape anymore. It's just like a really densely planted aquarium. Fish are loving it. Plants are super healthy, no algae. And yeah, I really love it. But I will be doing a video on how to tame the aquascape. So I'll do some trimming, and I'll maybe move some plants around, and you can see in a forthcoming video quite soon on how we can convert this into a more attractive layout. So anyway, I'm digressing, aren't I? So this is hooded, and basically all the disadvantages I talked about the rimless, we can turn those into advantages for the hooded tank. So less evaporation, less heat being wasted, no jumping fish, hopefully. I mean, there's a tiny gap in the back there. If they really wanted to commit suicide, they'd have to really try quite hard, but it's going to be a lot trickier to do that. Less evaporation, and yeah, it's just lots of advantages really. Disadvantages: we can't have a hardscape coming out the top, not quite as attractive in my opinion, and that's about it really. That is pretty much the advantage, the pros and the cons of each, the hooded and the rimless aquariums. Let me know in the comments, do you have rimless, or do you have hooded, or do you have both? And have you discovered anything different or any additional information that I've given? Let me know in the comments, and let everyone else know your experiences. Let's have a little bit of a dialogue going. I did get a super chat from someone, and I do apologise, I've missed it. So I don't know if I can find you. If any of the mods are watching, did you notice? Oh, here we go. Sorry, yeah, got it. Wow, there's so many comments coming through. Really appreciate all the comments, guys. Apologies for not being able to read them all while I'm kind of on transmit mode right now. Never Wonder, thank you very much for the $5 super chat. Never Wonder, really appreciate it. Never Wonder asks, how are you liking the Flex so far? Would you say there is enough light for medium or high light plants? Are you happy with the filtration? So 3 questions there. How am I liking the Flex so far? Loving it, super easy, absolutely no problems with it whatsoever. Would I say there is enough light for medium or high light plants? I would say probably not. It's only, I think, a 12-watt lamp over a 15-gallon tank or 57 litre. So you'll probably struggle with medium plants. If you had CO2 injection, you'd probably be able to grow medium plants, but you'd probably struggle with advanced or high light plants, I would say. Am I happy with the filtration? Yes, I am. Yeah. There's quite a lot of fish stocking in there. We've got probably 15 green neons, 8 or so glow light tetras, and then I've got a trio of Apistogramma cacatoides. So it's not a low fish load, but you can see that they're thriving, the plants are thriving. I've not done anything different. Everything in that you see here, apart from the fish, what I bought from my local pet store, and I think that's a great thing. I think, you know, the local pet store that I'm talking about, there's like 450 of them in the UK. There's one in every town, pretty much every major town, and anyone can walk in, hopefully any one of these stores, and achieve this. They can watch my video, they can buy all that stuff, and there you go. There's no excuse not to be able to succeed with a planted tank. You know what I mean? It's just, it is really accessible. And that's one of the biggest reasons I wanted to set this up, was to show you guys how easy it can be. So if you've not seen the video on this, how I created this, just Google how to set up how to aquascape a Fluval Flex on the YouTube search. Maybe put George Farmer in there and you should get the video. I think it's about 16-18 minutes long, and yeah, it goes through the whole process, makes it super simple to understand, hopefully for you guys. Okay, so thanks for the super chat. Okay guys, I am going to go on to the Q&A. So if you want, definitely 100% want your question answering, drop me a super chat. I'm going to go into Q&A. So ask away. Dominic White has left a super chat apparently. Oh God, I missed a load. Sorry guys. I'm going to have to scroll up. Never Wonder we did. Dominic White, thank you for your super chat, €2. What are the best tanks when you're on a budget? The Fluval brand is very reputable and good value for money, I would say. You know, say no more. Superfish, if you're in the UK, I don't know if you guys have them wherever you are. They're very cheap, available from most Maidenhead aquatic stores. Yeah, Fluval, Superfish, what are the brand? Aqua One, they're a bit cheaper and a bit less reliable, I would say. Had quite a bad experience with one where the finish, the brace bar wasn't beveled or polished, and I actually kind of cut my wrist when I put my hand in to do some aquascaping. It was like a super sharp glass corner, so that kind of put me off. So yeah, I mean, there's so many budget kind of options out there these days, but I'd try to stick to a reputable brand like the Fluval. That'd be my preference. Thank you for the super chat, Barney Richardson. You didn't ask a question. So let's see if there's any more. I was hoping you'd leave the super chats to the end, but I appreciate them, obviously. Okay. Matt41J4PO. Do you ever use RODI water? No. Just use tap water. AZ Computer Geek, what are your favourite CO2 setups? CO2 Art, quite like them at the moment, using a lot of their stuff. And the diffusers, I really like the Aqua Rio Neo diffusers. Karina K, I am setting up my first better fish tank. Are stones making the water too hard for the fish? It depends on the stones. If they're limestone based, they could be increasing the hardness and the pH, but bettas are actually quite hardy. So unless you've got loads of stones in there and they're like really kind of like chalky, then you should be okay. Steve Killing back, £2, thanks mate. I only have 50 characters, so question coming in a mo. No problem mate, I'll keep an eye out for it. Megan Henderson, grass or acrylic? Rimless tanks, which ones are better? That's a good question. So glass is easy, it's cheaper, more kind of accessible, more especially in the UK. I don't know. I know in the US acrylic's more popular than in the UK. But glass is cheaper. It's heavier. It doesn't scratch so easily as acrylic. And the disadvantages are acrylic is much more transparent, but you'll need a much kind of thicker amount for the equal kind of amount of strength in terms of it bowing, etc. So yeah, they've both got their pros and their cons basically. I've only ever used glass. I've never actually had owned an acrylic aquarium, but I have worked with them, and I do know people that make them, and really like them. The bigger disadvantage for me, because I'm quite clumsy, is scratching it. I mean, I've scratched the heck out of my 1200 and my 600 already, so goodness knows what an acrylic tank would look like in my hands. I've got loads of questions, guys. I apologise for people that I've missed their questions. Like I said, just leave a super chat if you do definitely want it answering. Vishal Kohli, thank you for your brilliant, helpful videos. Thank you for the super chat, Vishal. Really appreciate it. Guy Moore's best fertiliser product, Danilea or Tropica. Any other products you would advise? I use the Aquascape Complete Liquid Plant Food. Actually helped develop it with Evolution Aqua, and it's a proven performer. I've been using it for nearly 3 years now on pretty much all my tanks. The Tropica brand is very good as well. They do a specialised and a premium. The specialised has nitrates and phosphates, the premium doesn't. So if you have more fish and less plants, go for the premium. If you have less fish and more plants, then basically go for the specialised. Jen K, any advice on adjusting the height of the lights above the tank? How low, how high to determine what's best? Thank you. It's quite an arbitrary question. It depends on the lights, it depends on what you want to grow, it depends on the aquarium. So it's just basically trial and error. I can't really say more than that, I'm afraid, on that without knowing your specific setup. I just want to shout out to the mods as well. They look like they're very busy at the moment. Lots of messages being held for review. So thank you, Candy, Lizzie and Jimmy. Really appreciate it. George, does Tropica have any plans to expand their tissue culture range this year? Probably. I can't say 100%. Probably not allowed to. So I'm just going to say probably. Barney Richardson, £2. Thank you for the super chat. What would you recommend for a complete 250 quid setup? Wow. That's a tricky one. I'd probably have to go nano unless you go second hand on a online marketplace like eBay. But I'd go for a nano setup. Something like this, something like the Fluval Flex. They do this probably the smaller version with absolutely everything you need. You can quite easily do for probably £250, I would say. And I'm really impressed with it. The results speak for themselves. I'm not paid by Fluval. They've not paid me to say this. It's a good product. Personally, I would like it if it wasn't a bowed front at the, this kind of curved edge on it, but some people like it. I'm a bit of a, because I'm a photographer, it kind of distorts the view a tiny bit. But yeah, go for a Fluval Flex, £250. You should be able to stock it and pretty much do everything. With the smaller, I mean, this is the larger version. I think it's a 35 litre, the smaller one. And then you could have more options with your stocking for the 250 quid. But thanks for the super chat, Barney, appreciate it. Test, George, are you going to do a paludarium? Yes, hopefully. A bit of a story for you. You might have seen the video when I went over to Switzerland in a shop called Swiss Aqua Shop, ADA specialists. They had the Dua Terra, which is like a paludarium. If you don't know the shop I'm thinking of, just type in Swiss Aqua Shop, 3 separate words, Swiss Aqua Shop, George Farmer on the YouTube search, and you'll probably see a few videos that I did. You should see the paludarium that I featured there. I basically want almost the exact same thing in my home. So I'm in talks with Jörg Bollmann, who's a German kind of wholesaler guy for ADA. So hopefully I'm going to get one of those sometime soon. So it's exciting. Johnny's page, George, is chloride harmful to the fishes? I'm using mineral water and it has like 60 of chloride in it, not chlorine. No, the 60 to 150 milligrams per litre of chloride is probably the other element to the sodium chloride, potentially. So it has a tiny amount of salt in there. So it's probably fine. Chlorine, on the other hand, is harmful and you need to use a dechlorinator. I'm not 100% on that though. So if in doubt, just use a dechlorinator. So full disclaimer, I can't answer your question fully, just in case it is harmful, use a dechlorinator. Connor Wees, George, what is your favourite? Oh, just missed it. Here we are. Someone asked me what my favourite stone was. Wow, so many questions coming through. My favourite stone is Frodo stone at the moment, love that. What happened to my budget low tech tank? I gave it away, Russ. It was a brand that wasn't very popular in the UK, so it didn't seem to make sense to kind of, even if I wasn't sort of really promoting that brand in particular, it didn't make sense to talk about a tank a lot, which wasn't really that available. So basically swapped it over to this, which is a lot more accessible. Pretty much everyone in the world can get one of these, and it just made sense. So the livestock, the green neons came over from it, and yeah, so that's why I switched over. That makes sense, hopefully. Bonkers about Alex, such a cool name. Love the flex, thank you. Oscar Lloyd John, favourite hardscape material? Yeah, Frodo stone or manzanita wood at the moment. Test, George, do you have any plans for a paludarium or cool Webikusa? Yeah, we talked about the Dua paludarium. Webikusa, got one there now. XL Reefer, I have a Kessel A80 tuna sun for a 3-gallon planted tank with carpeting plants. Should I turn the Kessel up to max intensity? I also use the gooseneck sold by Kessel. So you've got 3-gallon with a A80. The A80 is 15 watts. It has a lot of light over a 3-gallon. Depending on the plants you've got in there, depending on how far away the light is actually from the tank. So with a gooseneck, you know, if you did want to whack it up to full, just do it gradually. Do it incrementally, say sort of 5 or 10% every day. Just turn that knob a tiny bit every day. See how you go. If you get any algae, it's probably because you've got too much light in there. Okay, thanks Philip M for that, brilliant. Plants and fish, is it worth testing all the water parameters to see exactly what's in your water so you could dose exactly the right amount of nutrients? I know you don't, but is it worth it for fun? If you want to, but bear in mind the test kits aren't very accurate. The plants aren't fussy, so just dose a little bit more than you need, and then the plants will use any extra, especially in a healthy planted aquarium. And then by doing the large weekly water changes, you reset those nutrient levels. That's my philosophy, that's the way I do things. But if you really wanted to test all the stuff and then test after you've dosed and work it all out, then go for it if that's how you want to have fun. No problem. Hannah, ever thought about having an aquatic reptile, George? No, not really. Aquascaping for me is more about the living picture rather than the creatures. I am a massive fan of fish and shrimp, but for me they're part of the picture. Obviously their welfare comes first and I look after them the best I can. But an aquatic reptile, you're more going into pet territory. You know, I've got Nimrod, he's my pet. Yeah, I don't know, and not really something that I've been that interested in. I do quite love dart frogs. If I did anything, I'd probably get a larger sort of terrarium or vivarium and maybe keep some dart frogs at some point. So I want to give a shout out to Serpa Design. Awesome channel. If you don't subscribe to him and you're into reptiles and stuff like this, really nice channel, really nice guy, super practical videos, well produced. Give him a subscribe if you haven't already and watch his content, because I really like it. Hopefully do a collaboration with him at some point. H2O Culture, $2 super chat. Just a super chat for a great lesson. Thanks, mate. Thank you very much. That's always appreciated. H2O Culture. Tanner, yeah, that's his name. Serpa Design, his name's Tanner. I forgot what his name was then. Thanks, Candy. Candy's just put a link to his channel. Test, George. How do you reduce water hardness? I don't personally, but if you wanted to, you can dilute it with reverse osmosis water. You can use chemical media as well, peat. There's quite a few different kind of filter medias which will take it out. But yeah, the most efficient, the most kind of measurable and reliable way is to dilute it with reverse osmosis water, deionized water, or even rainwater. But just be careful if you're collecting rainwater, make sure it's not contaminated. I'm just going to answer some at random now because there's so many things coming through. Got 301 people watching right now, so really appreciate that. That's awesome. Give us a like if you enjoying the content. Really appreciate that too. Whoa, just the questions are coming in too quickly. Seriously, if you want a question answering 100%, just leave me like the minimum amount of super chat just so I can see it, because I'm a bit overwhelmed. How to get rid of diatoms, asked Sunny Charles. Normally just wait for the filter and the substrate to mature, and it normally dies back if you've got healthy plant growth. Why don't you want hard water? Super chat, Jamie Baker, $2. ONF Flat One or UNS Titan, best $500 light. I have no experience with the UNS Titan. I do know the ONF Flat One works well, but don't quote me. So I'm going to say the ONF, but that's only because I know they work. This is actually an ONF Nano. It's probably a bit bright for this. I'm probably going to have to give it a bit of a spray. But yeah. Shall I move let's move the camera a bit closer. Hang on a second. Let's see if we can see how that looks. Looks really cool, doesn't it? Let me know what you think. So shout out to Ray McCune from Scape Nature for, yeah, I was going to buy it, but he wanted to give it to me as a gift, so I wasn't going to say no. In fact, I'm going to upload potentially later this evening the quick, did like a whirlwind tour of Scape Nature, just a 10-minute tour of the entire shop, a little bit of commentary along the way, so you can look forward to that. It's either going to be uploaded later this evening or tomorrow. Let me know in the comments if you want to see it tonight. Okay, some more. Oh, got another super chat. Russ Ballard, thank you so much. Thoughts on DIY CO2? Asking for a skint Scottish bloke. Yeah, you can succeed with it. If you do go DIY CO2, then consider running 2 bottles side by side, and then change the mixtures sort of halfway in the timeline between each other, then you get a more consistent CO2 output. That's my top advice for that. Hype boost, would you recommend cycling with plants and light, or cycling with that whilst pitch black to ensure no algae growth during startup period? I never cycle my scapes, my tanks, so I just plant heavily from the start, don't add any livestock. The plants themselves will cycle the tank. They produce waste through their roots, through the leaves, etc. Bacteria will start colonising the filter media just from the plants themselves. By the time you get to add the fish, say 2 to 3 weeks later, If you're using like an ammonia-rich soil, that's going to help seed the filter as well. But by the time you've stocked your fish, the plants will be growing to such an extent that when you add your fish, those plants are going to be able to deal with any ammonia production and also the bacteria that's been produced as a consequence of that plant growth. I hope that makes sense. Armando Ruas, hello George, how to remove BBA without removing anything from the aquarium? You could spot dose something like Seachem Flourish XL or hydrogen peroxide. Hydrogen peroxide is less toxic. So what I like to do is drain the aquarium down as much as you can without harming the fish or your shrimp. So you make sure you drain it down to hopefully expose the BBA to the air. Have a paintbrush, paint on the Neat XL or Easy Carbo, whatever liquid like glutathione product or hydrogen peroxide. Paint it directly onto the BBA and that will absolutely nuke it. No need to take the stuff out of the tank. Callum Gardner, what plants are best for growing off wooden rocks? Anubias, Java fern, different mosses, Bulbitis, Bucophilandra. Just check out any of most of my videos will feature some of these plants. So in particular, if you check out my Aquascape 1200 playlist, Candy, if you want to work your magic and put a link to that playlist for our man there, that would be awesome. Most of those videos you'll see the plants I'm talking about. Okay, Steve Killenback, my mate that I met yesterday, top guy. I want to tell a little story about Steve. He came in with his work clothes on and he was like super keen to meet me. And I know Steve because he comments loads on my videos and I do really appreciate it. I appreciate all the comments, guys. But in particular, I remember Steve because his name's quite special, Killenback. He came in the shop yesterday. I was at Scape Nature during their grand opening. I was supposed to only be there till 4 p.m. I think it was about 4:30 and the shop was still so busy. I didn't want to leave Ray and Jill. So obviously stayed a little bit after hours. And then Steve came in and he introduced himself. And yeah, it was really great. It's really great to meet people that actually you engage with as well online. So just a shout out to Steve. So Steve's question, I'm looking to set up a Scaper 600, an Aquascape 600. The only place I can put it is by a window, although it is not direct sunlight and I'll be injecting Ca2. Is it going to cause me too many problems to be worth it? If it's the only place you can do it, I would just do it, see how it goes, and then at least you can say you've tried. You can take measures to limit the light coming in. So what I've done before is kind of blacked out the sides of the tank and the back of the tank. So you've only got light penetration available through that front pane. That's helpful. Floating plants are helpful. They'll use the extra light. It's a rimless tank, so the light coming in might be able to grow those floating plants. They're going to remove any excess nutrients, which can trigger the algae as well. So there are a few things. Plant it really heavily. Use a good amount of fast-growing plants as well. They're going to use that extra light as well. So you might have to kind of make sacrifices in terms of the aquascape you want to create. But if you use like loads of fast growing plants, floating plants, black out maybe if you can the sides of the tank if needed, then you can more than likely be able to succeed with your Aquascape 600, and good luck with it, mate. Awesome tank. Friday Fish Facts, do you need Ca2 for pink flamingo? Probably not, most crypts are relatively easy. Best way to plant things like Hannah W. Best thing to plant things like Java fern and Anubias, which can't go in soil so they don't float around. I usually just, depending on what hardscape material you've got, like the wood and the rock, you can normally find like a gap where you can just wedge. That's what I normally do. Super glue works as well. Use the gel type Sanacrylite super glue. Cotton thread, you can thread it on. Big stuff you can just zip tie on. So lots of different ways to attach your plants. If you just go on YouTube and search for how to attach plants to wood, there'll be lots of good videos on it like that, I would say. Mr. Steve Killenback, enjoyed watching you filming the vid you will be posting soon. Thanks, mate. Mr. Marco Unico, hi George, need to move my fish from Aroma 1200 to 200 whilst kitchen gets done. Setting up a 40 litre temporary tank. Will 12 fish be okay in a bare bottom, or should I substrate and plants from the Roma? They'll be fine, as long as it's only for sort of 24, 48 hours, maybe, even a few days. Try to use a mature filter though, and a heater, and use at least half of the water from your old tank, just to keep the water chemistry and the water quality as good as can be. If you're keeping them in there for any length of time, then just do like big water change, well, just do like a third water change every other day. But 12 fish in a 40 litre, depending on how those fish are, should be absolutely fine. Ian Moore, hi George, what would be a good carpeting plant for the Fluval Flex? I'm using the Liliopsis brasiliensis, and this is Sagittaria as well, which is carpeting. Helanthium tunnelum as well as another option. Dan Button, thanks for the $1.99 super chat, Dan, appreciated. Twin Star 600S or Kessel A160, personal choice, Twin Star 600S every time. Steve Gould agrees with me, that's good. Hi Steve. Okay guys, I'm going to take one more question. So if you guaranteed want it, I hate doing this, I sound really greedy, but there's so many questions coming through. If you want to leave a super chat, I'll answer the next super chat question. And if I don't get one in the next 30 seconds, I'll just answer one at random. Steve, they're excellent clothes. I don't know what you're on about. Okay, guys, I'm going to answer a question at random. Alex Jackson, what? Oh, we've got a super chat, 10 quid, boom. That's got to be one of my biggest so far. Elon, yes. I knew Elon, I count on Elon. I've set a tank up for Elon, so if you guys want to look at his tank, what is it called? There's an Aquascape 600. Oh, how to set up a beautiful nature aquarium, or there's so many titles like that. But anyway, Elon, sorry mate. Hey mate, how long after setup will the Tropica substrate require some sort of soil fertilizer? Great question. Depends on the system. If you're dosing liquid fertilizers regularly, then almost indefinitely you'll never need to really add any more nutrients to the soil. Do you mean the soil, the Tropica soil, or the Tropica plant substrate? I guess you mean the soil because that's what you use. So I know you dose regularly with liquid fertilizer, so you probably don't need to add any more to the soil. If you really wanted to, I would recommend the Tropica root capsules after probably 12 months or so. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question, Elon, and hopefully look forward to scaping a nice big tank for you soon, eh? Oh, we've got another one. Alex Niebenham. Hello, have already worked with soil. If I only work with... have I already worked with soil if I only work with mosses, ferns and buces? Also need plants nutrition of the soil. No, if you're just using epiphyte plants, like the ferns, the buces and the mosses, you don't need the soil at all. It's only if you're planting into it. Thank you very much for the super chat, really appreciate it. Okay guys, I'm going to sign off there. Thanks so much for watching. I think we had a record audience at one point. We had well over 300 people, which is amazing. So cool to know that so many of you watching all at once, and hopefully engaging in this Scape School Sunday. So just a reminder, hopefully if I have the capacity, the last Sunday of every month I will do this format. And hope you enjoyed it. It'll be on a playlist, so you can watch, you know, lots of other lessons about other planted tank and aquascaping topics. So check them out as well. Really look forward to giving you loads more cool content coming soon. So if you did enjoy the Scape School Sunday, guys, give me a thumbs up. Really appreciate it. Share it if you can. Like I said, the video will be watchable afterwards permanently. And finally, massive shout out to the mod team for being very busy by the look of it this evening. So I really appreciate your hard work, guys, and it's pretty much a thankless task. So just thank you from me. Okay, you take care, guys. Keep on scaping. Cheerio. Okay, as a little treat, guys, let's do a little, I'll show you Nimrod. He's having a little sleep down there, I think. There he is.